Oh, I need to turn my microphone down. It's a little hot. Hello! As we are testing a couple of things to make sure that this work is working. Yep, we're live. Hi. Happy Wednesday?
Maybe.
Oh shit, hang on. I left I had wrestling YouTube up before I was going to stream, so then when I backed out, I opened a new window to see if we were on our YouTube working correctly, and we were. So I closed that, and that activated or woke up the YouTube video. I don't know, man. That's wrestling YouTube. So, hi. Happy Wednesday. Getting ready for spooky season. I mean, I guess if you're someone who does a lot of stuff for Halloween, you're probably already doing it or have done it or whatever. I honestly forgot that Halloween was this weekend. Since Susie and I don't have kids, and since we, what's the phrase I'm looking for here? Don't deal with spawn. Hey, I just noticed that I can't see my chat. I wonder what I turned off to do that. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to open up this stream in YouTube and keep it muted so that I can at least see chat there. So if you are trying to talk to me, go to the Falstaff Books YouTube channel and talk to me there, because I will probably be able to talk back to you. That is, of course, assuming there's anybody out there, because not seeing nobody in my god-awful British accent. No. I use this software so rarely. And that's, one of the reasons I'm wanting to do these streams, so that I can become more familiar with this software and be able to do stuff. But as it is, I'm learning. And not always terribly quickly. But hey, we'll figure it out, right? I promised people reading. So let's read. Oh, hey, look at that. I have people. I'm using OBS Streamlabs, Vanessa. Mostly because apparently it's the standard, and that's what everybody uses. So that's what I'm on. I think I've got everything hooked up right now. I just can never keep track of everything. So if I do keep doing this more regularly, like every couple of weeks, as I'm trying to, I will be able to become more familiar with the software, etc. So, hi. I'm going to do, like I did a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to read a little bit from new and upcoming Falstaff releases, and I am then going to read a little bit from some of my work in progress, and then talk a little bit about writing in the publishing industry, etc., etc. So, first off, this is the opening. It's not really a prologue, but it's kind of a prologue, but it's not, to Hunter Houston and the Molten Menace, which is Bobby Nash's new novella coming out in about 5 hours from Falstaff Books. It releases tomorrow. It releases tomorrow, and this is a Bubbaverse book. It is set when in the year and a half when Bubba had gone to Fairyland, and Bubba was out for a while. So they had to have a regional monster hunter. Somebody had to step up. Well, the person that stepped up was Hunter Houston, horror hunter. And this is the beginning of that. Forget what you've heard. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being the second best at anything. This is the absolute truth. No matter what your parents or high school track coach tell you. No matter the lyrics from your favorite classic rock song. You know, the one you use to get pumped up at the gym. No matter the message that gets rammed down your throat in the latest feel-good movie of the year about the underdog clawing his way to the top. No matter any of that. Sometimes second place is the place you want to be. There are many very successful people coming in second place in their respective fields who do just fine. The number 2 brain surgeon in the world, still a pretty damn good doctor, one would imagine. Same goes for the person holding the number 2 spot on the Forbes 500 list. Being the best of the best may be the goal for some, and it is a good goal to have, but there are perks to not being first in your field. Hunter Houston Jr. is a perfect example of this. Houston is a big guy who stands around 6 feet tall and weighs in the neighborhood of 240 pounds, most of it muscle and packed in his broad shoulders and bulging biceps. They definitely grew him big on those backwood Georgia dirt roads where he grew up. He still calls the Peach State home. Back there, they refer to him as a good old boy. Everybody who knows him calls him Houston, but those closest to him, like his mama Maddie and baby sister Beth Ann, call him Junior. They do this mainly because he hates it, and he can't really do anything about it unless he wants the embarrassment of everyone knowing his aged mama could still turn him over her knee and tan his hide, especially considering he's 28 years old. That's the kind of information that, if it got out, would be hard to live down. Might even drop him to 3rd place, maybe 4th. 2nd place is acceptable, but it's hard to make a halfway decent living being 4th best, especially in his line of work. Houston hunts monsters for a living. Now, these aren't the kind of monsters most people think about out there in the real world. He's not a cop or PI stopping abusers or molesters on a regular basis. Houston is a good man and would probably step in and stop those things if he knew about them. But they fall outside of his job description. The kind of monsters he hunts are those your parents kept telling you over and over don't exist anywhere except in your mind. Your parents are wrong. Monsters are real. They are dangerous, and they are here. Thankfully, hunters like Houston stand between regular folks and the things that go bump in the night. As a career, monster fighting is in no way glamorous and frankly not too sanitary. That aside, it's steady work, and kicking monster ass was one of the few things Houston had ever been good at doing. Plus, the job doesn't require a high school diploma, much less a doctorate, so that meant no schooling, which suits Houston just fine. He never enjoyed cracking the books. But cracking heads? Well, at that, he's near the top of his class. On the outside, Houston looks like just another big dumb redneck. And while that's kind of true, Houston is smarter than most people credit him. Often that even works to his advantage. There's book smarts and street smarts. What Houston has is dirt road smarts. With his unkempt appearance, disheveled brown hair, and a week's worth of beard stubble, He looks like a guy you would find bent over under the hood of a car in a junkyard or working on a farm. If he hadn't found a different calling, one that he was rather adept at, that's most likely where he'd be today. By this point, you're probably wondering why we aren't talking about the number one monster hunter out there. That guy's name was Bubba. Now, obviously, and that's the opening to Hunter Houston Horror Hunter 1. Hunter Houston and the Molten Menace. Available Thursday, October 28th. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, available tomorrow from Falstaff Books. And yeah, I like that. I like that story. I really like Bobby's premise for this series. The idea of what is the second string monster hunter do? Most of the time, nothing. He doesn't have to do a whole lot. It's like you've got Superman. So if there's a C-list superhero in Metropolis, what's he got going on? Not a whole lot. So that is Hunter Houston Horror Hunter. And I'm just messing with the view here for a second. And there we go. All right. So, Donald, thank you for mentioning that I'm looking better. Injury update, I guess. It's time for our weekly injury report, so you'll know who's playing on Sunday. That's a football joke for most of my friends. I'm almost healed. My face is... Nothing hurts anymore in my face. It still feels a little weird because there's a little bit of nerve damage, and I don't feel... It feels strange in this side of my upper mouth, but yeah, it feels better. It feels like I'm healed, which is nice. And then the left arm is almost completely back to normal. I don't know if you can see, you can't really tell, but I can pretty much straighten my left arm completely out. I can lift what puny little amounts I could lift before I was injured. My left arm is pretty good. My right is still, it was more busted than the left, so we're still, I still can't straighten it, and it hurts to turn it. So the right, we're still getting there on that one. My hands are pretty well okay. I never really had any trouble with the left hand. The right wrist was a little sprained. I'm mostly over that. So I'm fine. I'm healed. I really appreciate everybody's concern and everybody being understanding when I had to miss Monsterama and when I was on light duty at Multiverse. So I'm all patched up, or as patched as I get, and getting ready for the Heroes Giant Mini-Con coming up next weekend. If anybody has been to the Heroes Mini-Con, it's usually a much, much smaller event than the big Heroes Con. Heroes Mini-Con is the size of most one-day Comic-Cons. It's about what you'd expect out of a one-day Comic-Con. This giant Mini-Con is a lot damn bigger. They've got one whole hall of the convention center, which is a lot of space, and they've got some big comic book names: Sanford Greene, Brian Stelfreeze, Jim Shooter. There's a lot of really great artists coming in. Mark Bagley drew Spider-Man for a long time. So they've got a ton of artists for the comic side. They've got a ton of other people coming in, so I'm looking forward to that. I hope it'll be a good event. So my next selection for the evening is the opening of The Curse of Shallow Bay. This is the first in the Salt Songs, a trilogy of novellas from J. Reckward, and this is some sword and sorcery style fantasy. And this is its beginning. The first book, Curse of Shallow Bay, is available now at Amazon and from Falstaff Books. The second book, At the Mirror's Edge, will be coming out tomorrow. That also drops on the 28th. So we're doing a double novella release day for Bobby and Jay. And you can pick up the first book, Curse of Shallow Bay, right now. You can pick up the second tomorrow. Chapter 1. Gods of War Arise. Ungala stared hard into the darkness of the ship's hold, his men on the benches as they stoked the oars in time. Dark faces set to their dire task. Taken by a madman's grin, not even the ache in his knees dimmed his satisfaction, their desires unified for the grim work ahead. The ocean answered to each pull they made, roaring as it rushed beneath the ship's keel. He got the attention of the timekeeper standing on the wide platform a few feet from the sternside steps, who turned in perfect time with his drumming, eyes bright in the gloom. "Hail, Captain," said Nkuku, his beater wrapping the goatskin. "Ready to drop sail?" Ungala gave the man a firm nod as he watched the rowers, their display hypnotic. Everything came down to timing on the Mirror Sea, her shining surface an illusion for those who did not know how to keep seconds by the stars, sun, and waves. Unfortunate sods who often ended up dead for such ignorance. "Strike the benches the moment we wedge the sand. Only release the second and third banks when the last of the raiders clear the deck. Bring me some coin and I'll have the deck swept by the time you get back," Nkuku said. Grinning, Ngala nodded to the timekeeper's blessing before he ascended back to the top deck. His raiders already arranged in their arrowhead formation on the boat's flat boards. They shouted prayers to the starry sky above, to gods old and beyond, begging attention to the glories and treasures they would claim this night. At the point of their two slanted columns knelt a tall and sinewy youth, painted in streaks of green and white, calling louder than the rest. His grim face revealed by heaven's small lights, he bashed the iron head of his short spear against his hide shield, leading the call and response. Satisfied with Taosi's management of his troop, Ngala looked on ahead as he backed to the steering oar. Over the bow rose a misshaped line of starlit sand. Not far beyond lay the sprawling piers of Bora, a busy port despite a populace of no more than a few hundred, with a garrison too paltry to worry about if the word was right. Ruddy lights slid open the roofs of the nighttime markets, bonfires and torch lanes so bright he knew no watcher would see the Gamka coming. The trireme cut through the water, driven onward by the rowers toiling beneath Ngala's feet, and the mud-green sail filled by the night wind. A lone figure manned the lifeline of the ship's steerage, the long wooden handle controlling her tilt and turn. A tall and striking image, the broad-faced Zaki set a course ahead at the target, a fierce smile carving her smooth face apart in a lioness's snarl. Confident in Zaki's poise, Ngala returned focus to his destination in dark satisfaction. The salt in the air on his scarred black body clung blessings upon him, fueling the bloodlust hunching him forward. He squeezed the shaft of his spear. A sword hung heavy at his side, begging to be seized. He glanced to Tausi. The boy laughed like a hyena descending on prey. The Gamka drove toward the midnight beach, the sail billowing in the last few moments before a pair of raiders struck the cloth, leaving the rowers beneath to power the trireme's charge. Supported by the tide propelling them landward, the extra push created by their collective strength nearly doubled their speed. Knowing the might of his ship's bronze rostrum, her lion-faced ram, he watched the faded line of pale coast inch closer, growing larger and larger and larger. The trireme furrowed the earth before the sand stopped her with a booming thud. Ungala leapt overboard with his 40 raiders and landed on the beach, sprinting hard for the outlying line of tents, their striped fabrics bright waypoints for plunder. 80 of the rowers followed next, armed with javelins, slings, and sacks. The corsairs, each a veteran of Ungala's raids, ran headlong into the stalls, carving their way past whoever rose to stop them. Most fenders fled at the appearance of their painted attackers. And that is the beginning of The Curse of Shallow Bay. Super exciting sword and sorcery stuff. So if you dug what you heard, go get the rest. Apologies for anything I mispronounced, but I are a redneck, and that happens. Also, I didn't do my homework and actually look anything up before the recording, so that was my bad. Our slack. So those are 2 releases we've got. We've got from Falstaff this month. Hope you guys will go check those out. And I believe folks are interested in hearing. I'm trying to open the folder. That's why I'm looking past y'all and stalling and doing a terrible job of stalling. Oh, come on. I rebooted my computer, so now everything takes a year to open. There we go. So this is a... God, sorry. Completely lost my train of thought. Totally derailed. This is a selection from the upcoming Bubba. God, I am out of it tonight. I haven't even had my snazzy little CBD gummies. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I should have. I'm going to read something from Harker 8. And before I do that, let's talk a little bit about the evolution of this book, because I realized that it's been a year and 3 months since I released the last Quincy Harker book. That's a long damn time. I knew that it was going to be a while when I finished Conspiracy Theory, which was book 7, because I had Lady in Black, which is Black Knight 8. I had that to write. And then I needed to do some Bubba. And then I needed the pieces of Bubba that were going to cross over with Harker, because everything had set up to do the Bubba crossover. So by the time I turned around and wrote the Bubba novellas, it was like April and I hadn't started on this Harker book. And I was like, oh yeah, I kind of have to write that. So in other words, I screwed up my release scheduling, and I screwed up planning the books. What I should have done was had Born to be Wild and... God, I don't even remember when Born to be Wild and Swamp Music released. I think they were the first part of this year, or one of them was this year. I don't know. What I should have done was have the 4 Bubba novellas written so that they could release and fill about 9 months between Conspiracy Theory and Comes a Reckoning. And then I would have had Comes a Reckoning ready to go with a year break in between, which isn't as bad as the almost 18 months it's going to end up being. But you know what? As sequels go, as Act 2s go, 2021's been pretty damn close to as bad as 2020, so we can say screw it. We can say screw this year too. But I'm almost done. According to my outline, I have 4 chapters left. We'll see if I can get this finished in 4 chapters. I think I can. I'm just about to start writing the last big fight. But I think last time I read a little bit out of the backstory for this, didn't I? Ooh, no. Yeah, I read a little bit of the backstory here. This is a pretty good scene. This is a pretty good little scene. This is again, my typical level of prep. I didn't figure out what I was reading for this either. So this is actually chapter 10. But I think it lifts enough. It lifts enough character to be interesting, and it doesn't give anything away. So, chapter 10. There are a lot of people who want me dead. Between living for over a century and killing a lot of demons in that time, I've pissed off a lot of bad people. And a lot of bad things that look like people. So it wasn't that I knew where to find whoever murdered the demon agents. It was more like I knew where to find the person most likely to know who murdered the demon agents. And in Charlotte, that means one place. Mort's bar. I told you not to come back here, Harker! Mort stepped out from behind the bar and held up a hand. The bartender tossed a sawed-off shotgun toward it, but I swatted it out of the air with a blast of magic. No, I said. I didn't feel like explaining myself, so I didn't. I just walked across the floor and slapped the taste out of the demon's mouth. He fell to the floor, and before he could scramble to his feet, I planted one foot in the center of his chest and glared down at him. Stay. I turned to the bartender, who was frantically reaching around under the bar. Whatever you're looking for, I can absolutely promise you that it's better if you don't find it. I'm in a shit mood and looking for someone to break. If you don't want to be that someone, you should fuck off into the back and polish the silverware or something. After a quick glance down at Mort to make sure he wasn't harboring any ambitions on moving, I spared a glance around the rest of the bar. Demon bars don't see a ton of lunch traffic, so it wasn't terribly surprising that only 3 tables had anyone sitting in them. There was a pair of witches who were studying their menus so hard I thought they might burn holes in the plastic if they weren't careful. A foursome of giggling college kids taking a Wednesday midnight stroll on the wild side, and one giant in a hoodie that hadn't turned to look at the ruckus. If trouble was going to come from anywhere, that was the direction. I've got you, Bex said in my head. I glanced up to see the back door cracked and knew my backup was in place. Telepathy is very underrated as a tool for urban assault, I've found. Who's the master, Mort? I asked, making sure my voice was loud enough for everyone in the room to hear me. Fuck if I know, Harker, Mort replied, his words a little distorted by the gold grill this body wore. Mort's a hitchhiker demon, who does favors for mortals in exchange for a piggyback ride in their bodies. This was a new one, a young black man with short dreads and gold teeth. He was in good shape, and if I was to judge by his watch, had plenty of money. So I wondered idly what he wanted from Mort that got the proprietor of the biggest demon hangout in Charlotte a ride in his skin. Why don't I believe you, Mort? I mused. Oh yeah, because you're a fucking demon. Now I know killing this meat suit won't really hurt you, so I whipped up this nice little banishing charm that shouldn't harm the body you're inhabiting, but ought to send you all the way down to the 9th circle. That's where you're from, right? It isn't. Mort's strictly a 4th circle demon, way less aggro and bitey than the 9th circle assholes. According to Faustus, hell has a very strict hierarchy, and if a weaker demon, one from a higher circle, finds themselves in a lower circle surrounded by more powerful demons, well, let's just say it's usually not a good time for the 4th circle interloper. Demons aren't just assholes to humans. They're assholes to everyone, and will torment the fuck out of another demon just as much as they'll torment a human or any other weaker being they come across. So threatening to send Mort to the 9th circle was kind of like threatening to teleport a fat guy right into a cannibal's stew pot. I swear to God, Harker, I don't know shit, Mort blubbered. I didn't believe him. There are a few absolutes in this world. You never swing at the first pitch. You never buy a dance from the first stripper to approach you at a topless club. And you never believe anything a demon tells you before you've even started the torture. Unless you barter something they want. Oddly enough, they'll usually bargain pretty fairly. Fair for soulless monsters that live to torment humans, that is. But I wasn't there to make a deal. I was there to gather information, no matter who I had to brutalize to get it. I bent over and picked Mort up. This body was short and thin, which made things easier. Mort was a lot harder to bully when he was riding around an NFL quarterback, or whenever a pro wrestler loaned out his body to the scheming demon. This guy was only about $1.60, so snatching him up by his collar was easy. Mort, I'm going to ask you one more time. Then I'm going to start breaking things. Not on the body. I know it's a rental. No, I'm going to hit you where it really hurts. Your wallet. You tell me what I want to know, or I'm breaking every glass in this joint, then I'll move on to the liquor bottles. Then the chairs. If I make it through all the furniture before you crack, then we start dialing in on which circle of hell I'm throwing you down into. And that, I believe, is a good place to stop that reading. That, like I said, is from the upcoming Comes a Reckoning, which is the next Quincy Harker Demon Hunter novel, and it will be releasing on December 7th. Surprise! And I have to pause for station identification. In other words, drugs. Oh, God. Not just any drugs, mind you. Claritin D. Something in the barometer has shifted, and I can't breathe very well, so now in an hour or so I'll be great. I'll also be wide awake for putting pseudoephedrine in my system at 8 o'clock at night. Yay. So it is the 27th of October, and that means a couple of things. One, I broke down and turned the heat on today. Two, Halloween is this weekend. And three, NaNoWriMo starts Monday. Some of you may wonder, what is NaNoWriMo? NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, a program that celebrates November as a time when people should write a damn novel. And obviously there's a lot more to it than that. The concept is that you get together with a group of like-minded people who want to write books. Maybe they're stuck creatively. Maybe they've just never had anybody to help them figure out how to actually write a book. So sorry. All right, I'm back. So there are programs all over where you can find people in your community who are also working on National Novel Writing Month. And the idea is that you write 50,000 words in the month of November. Technically, you're supposed to only start. You can have things planned out, but you can't have started. And whether or not you finish the book, when you get to 50K, you've won NaNoWriMo. It's just a way that people can cheerlead for each other and have some accountability in the frame of an internet community or a live community that they're working with to keep them writing and keep them on task. And it is a way that people can ignore that inner editor and just jam out a lot of words, because 50,000 words in a month is a bunch. It's more than my normal output. Lately I've been doing 2,000 words a day, 5 days a week. So I do about 40,000 words a month. And if I was consistent enough at that, that's almost 500,000 words a year. I don't make that every month, though. Especially not the last 2 years. But NaNoWriMo, a lot of people find it very useful for all of those reasons. Accountability, resources, connections to other writers. And I think it's great. Anything that removes the self-rejection that we all participate in, anything that cuts that down is great. Anything that reduces barriers to entering the field is great. I don't necessarily know that it is a fantastic tool for established writers, but if you're stuck, if you're having trouble on a book, it gives you a month where you're going to do something else. Maybe if I was not almost finished with this Harker book, I'd say, okay, I'm going to write this during this month. I'm going to write a nano book, and it's going to be this. I am going to finish the Harker book this week instead, so I won't be doing NaNoWriMo. I'll be doing National Revise My Crap Mo. So NaNoWriMo is just like anything else. It's a tool. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. It's not my thing. Never done it. That's not how I don't work. I don't do my work in a group. I work here in this weird little nerd haven, and that's my process. Certainly doesn't have to be yours. But, check it out. And if you win, if you get to your 50,000 words, I think you get a discount on Scrivener. So that's pretty good. Saving money is great. Yeah. Samantha says that she's going to use it to jumpstart Menopausal Superheroes #5. And that's a great way to do it, especially for someone who has a real life and a real job. It's a way to help carve out the time and focus on the work. So that's awesome. Sorry, I'm thirsty. So we had some questions. Doo-dee-doo. Doo-dee-doo-dee-doo. Jessica asks, how are the supply chain issues going to affect our Christmas sales? Well, if you want to give books as gifts for Christmas, you'd better order them soon. The order I just put in for Ingram said 20 days. I think they said 15 days for paperbacks and 20 days for hardcovers. So that means if I put in an order on Monday for hardcovers, 4 weeks lead time. Because that 20 days, that's a 5-day work week. They're not working 24/7 for that. So the supply chain is going to absolutely affect us. Us as small press authors, it affects a lot less because most small press authors and independent authors make the majority of their money on ebook and audio. If you have audio, you may see a little bump. You may see an ebook bump because fewer print books are available. But yeah, it's going to make things difficult. And I think we're going to continue to see these random shortage. They're not random, but these shortages pop up here and there for the foreseeable future, at least. But yeah, it's definitely going to have an impact. I think we're going to see a hit in book sales because they're an impulse buy. People want to, I'll go in the bookstore and I'll get something for Aunt Emmer. Well, I can't get anything that Aunt Emmer would like, so I guess I won't buy a book. It's that kind of thing. So, all right. Well, here's another supply chain question. Is the impact you're seeing as a small press publisher noticeably different from the larger publishers? Yes, absolutely. They're different. The bigger publishers are doing offset print runs of books. And that's, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 copies at a time, using up all of that paper, and it's all being designated to this. But because our books are print on demand, and if you order the book from Amazon and they don't have it in stock, they'll print it. So because we're not doing big massive orders, we can kind of slip in between some of the big orders at some of the printers. Kind of like when there's four parties of 8 at a restaurant, and you come in and it's just you and one other person, and you're like, table for 2, and they can slide you in before some of the big groups. I feel like it's gonna be that way. Michaela asks, how does one go about finding a quality cover artist, and what's a reasonable rate to pay? Okay, that's a really good question. And judging by some of the covers I see every day, it's a question that a lot of people still need the answer for. I'm being catty. What I suggest in a lot of cases is, if there are particular covers and styles that you like, see if you can find that artist and hire them. I know when we picked up the Golgotha series from R.S. Belcher, we talked to the original cover artist for the series and would have happily used his art, except for the giant bucket of money. And then we got a phenomenal cover from Lynn Hansen, and that was even better. So Sometimes, if it's a small press or an indie author, you can email the author and they'll know who did the cover and happily refer you. If it's a major press book, I honestly don't know how you go about finding out who did a cover for Tor. Hadn't ever thought about it. I don't know. Maybe Google it. It's probably out there somewhere. So find a cover you like and then go try to hire that artist is absolutely one. Another perfectly reasonable thing to do is to go through Facebook groups and Google searches, and then when you come across an artist whose work you like, send them images of covers that you like and say, hey, can you do something that incorporates this style? I typically go by referrals, but yeah, I typically go by referrals. I would rather know that the person isn't crazy when I start, because they'll sure as hell be crazy by the time we're done. No, I like to talk to writers to see who they've used in the past and then get connected that way. What's a reasonable price to pay? Hard to say. I'm going to say starting at $350 and going up, depending on what you want. If you're doing a ton of original art, then it's going to be more. If you're going to a cover artist who's won multiple awards for their book covers, it's going to be more. If you're going to go to somebody who's starting out and you realize it may take multiple revisions to get a cover that you like, then it'll probably be less. Time really is money. So the more time you're willing to put in working with an artist, the better your result. And it may be a way that you can save some cash. But there are lots of stock cover art sites out there. Some of them are very good. But a lot of times when you get into the more expensive stock covers, you can get an original cover done for the same money. So then just get an original cover done and get the image you want. So yeah, I'd get on the Google machine and look up cover artists, find some of the ones that have done stuff like what you like, and then see what their rates are. I'm not going to pay $1,000 for a cover right now because most of our books wouldn't recoup that quickly enough for me to pay for the next cover. But you know, we all know that the more revisions or the more detailed a cover is, the more it'll cost. Me and my artists all know that. So yeah, I'd say between $350 and $1,000 for a good cover. That ought to get you a pretty good cover from a lesser known artist, somebody who's accustomed to doing a lot of work for major presses and doesn't need the work. Well, they're going to charge more, because I know when I don't need work, I charge more. It's why I'm expensive to do layout for books. I think that was all we had as far as questions. But yeah, that's all we had as far as questions. So I am going to head out of here and eat dinner. I appreciate all y'all stopping by and hanging out with me for a little bit. And I will see you back here in 2 weeks for another reading and streaming. And I don't know what I'll read then. We'll hopefully figure it out before 2 weeks from now. All right. Good night, y'all.